Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from JennyCardDesigns. Thanks so much for joining me today. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. Making tags is so much fun. I have tons of templates that I've designed to help you create multiple sizes of tags for a variation of different types of projects. Tags can be a quick and easy project or an extra special elaborate project, depending on the amount of effort and embellishment that you want to put into one of these projects. I get asked this all the time. What do I use tags for? Other than the most obvious for gift giving, what else can you use tags for? Stick around, because in today's video, I've got a bunch of ways to show you how to use some of these handmade tags in your craft space. These are some fun ways to help you get creative in your space, stay organized, and have some fun. What else can we use tags for? How about sentiment swatching? Let's check it out. For this particular type of tag, I like to use scraps that I have laying around in my space. For today's video, I've got some of these that I pulled out. These are some scraps that I had from cutting my 12x12 cardstock down for slimline cards. Now, I didn't end up making tons of slimline cards like I had intended, so I had these pieces sitting around in my drawer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting them up into 2-inch strips. So the paper is already 4 inches long, so I'm going to cut these down to 2 inches by 4 inches. I'll have a little scrap left over that I'm not going to worry about, but I'm going to cut up as many of these as I can. What I'm going to do is create a swatch ring for sentiments. Now, what does that mean, really? A swatch ring for sentiments? So basically, my idea here is to be able to create handmade cards and put sentiments on the inside of my card. I find personally that I'll use the cards more often if there's a greeting inside that can reflect what I'm looking for. As well, for craft fairs and things like that, I also find that my cards sell a lot better when I have sentiments on the inside. So I've got a good chunk of scraps cut up here, and if you find that you have any frayed edges or things like that from your trimmer, I have a little sanding block that I like to use just to buff off any of those little frayed bits, and it makes it look a bit cleaner and nice and neat. So what I'm doing here is rounding the corners on the bottom part of these little tags, and then I'm going to take some scissors and clip off one of the corners. I have 2 pieces stacked on top of each other. I'll cut off one of the corners, and then I'll flip the 2 pieces on top of each other, and then this will create a little guide. I've done this in many videos before, showing you how to create even symmetrical tags. So I'm going to snip off the corners, and those little guides give me the exact placement that we need to be so that all the tags will line up and be the same size and shape. Okay, so I'm going to do that to all of my stack of little scraps here. Here's a collection of little scraps that I've cut up so far today. And I'm just kind of spreading them out so that all of the same pattern is not together. I mean, that's really pointless. It doesn't really matter. I just like to have things spread out and have a variety of patterns. If I'm going to spend the time doing it, then I want it to look pretty and make me happy when I look at it. The next step here is to punch a hole in the tag so that they can all go on a little binder ring. So what I'm going to do is pull out some stamp sets, and this may take some time. It may take a year's worth of swatching, but you know, whenever you get a chance to do it, if you're pulling out a stamp set and you see a greeting inside that could be used for an inside of a card, then stamp it on your swatch ring and add it in. Or if you just feel like you don't have any inspiration or any ideas, then just pull out some of your stamps and start creating sentiment swatches, and it might strike an idea or might inspire you to do something. So I set up a little station where I can stamp and then clean my stamp and put it away and create my swatch ring. So I'm just going to load these up on an acrylic block, and I'm just going to use some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I know I get a great stamped impression every time when I use this ink, so I'm going to use this ink, stamp my sentiment, and clean off my stamp, pick another stamp up from the set, and just stamp away. And then I like to label the tags with the name of the stamp set, so that if I want to reference it later on, I know where to find it. So I write down the name of the stamp set, the brand, and the size. Because I store my stamps in little containers, then I would know where to look for 4x6 stamps or 6x8 stamps and so on. So I do that to all of these sentiments, and then I pop them onto these little binder rings. And I get these little binder rings from the dollar store. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier or not. And then when I want to make a card, I kind of flip through, and then when I find the sentiment that I'm looking for, then I know what stamp set it's with and where to find it. Another idea I have for this is to coordinate your papers with the type of holiday. Like, for example, if you have Christmas sentiments, then use Christmas paper and make a Christmas swatch ring. Okay, the second tip I have for you today is ink pad swatching. In my workstation, I have a set of drawers that I keep my most used products in. One of those drawers has this sort of layout of card bases and craft foam and scraps and card panels, as well as a little basket that I keep for tags. Because I use tags for so many different things, as you'll see in today's video, I like to keep on hand a basket of tags. Now I have lots of different sizes. The most used size that I have is 2.5 inches by 4 inches. I usually create these out of scraps that I have left over or offcuts or things like that, just trying to make the most of my products and stretching them as much as I can. And whatever random scraps. So I cut them down. Rather than throwing them away, I put them in my little tag pile, and then I have them for all of these uses that I'm sharing with you today. So I have some new Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink. I have yet to swatch these. They have come out with 30 new colors so far, and I've swatched the first 15, but I have not swatched the next set of 15. So I figured here's a perfect opportunity. I can show you how I do that. So what I do is I just grab a MISTI and I pick a stamp that I think will showcase the ink's true color the best. I have this JennyCarddesigns set, and I'll leave it linked in the description box down below. I'm not sure if this is still available, but you can use any sort of stamp. Just look through some of your stamps and see what you think would work best for you. I like this because it's, got a good solid area. Plus it has some distressed edges around the sides. So you kind of get a good look and feel of what the color could potentially produce in your projects. So I've got my cardstock in my stamping tool. I've got my stamp loaded up on the door, and I'm inking it up nice and good with that ink pad. And then I'll close the door of my MISTI and I'll press nice and firmly, and I'll use my little pressure tool to press down on that ink and give it a good chance to transfer to the paper. When I'm ink swatching, I only stamp the ink once. This way I get the true color of what it's going to look like. If I want to darken it up, then I can always double stamp. But for my swatches, I like to make sure that I've only stamped it once. Now to create my swatch ring, I'll use the same little binder rings, and I'll punch a hole in these little pieces of paper. And I've also clipped the corners so that they look like even symmetrical tags. And I've also written the name of the ink pad as well as the brand, which is Simon Says Stamp for these ones. And I'll swatch out all of these colors and get them all loaded up onto my little ring. And then I'll have a great reference point for my projects when I'm trying to match cardstock to paper or looking for a specific color. Then I've got a sample of exactly what this color will look like. Okay, for the third and final tip for today's video, I have an idea for sentiment labeling. When I make my handmade cards, I like to stamp a greeting on the inside of my card, as I mentioned in my first tip. And when I'm stamping the greeting, I like to take some of those tags that I use from my second tip, and I like to stamp the greeting a second time. So I've got the greeting stamped on the inside of the card, and then the greeting stamped on one of those little scraps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to package up my handmade card. I use these little clear plastic sleeves that I keep my handmade cards in, and I like to put the card with an envelope, and then I place this tag in the back so that it's visible. So this does a couple of things. Number one, it helps me to know exactly what's on the inside of this card should I decide to use it later on. So this way it stays stored in its package, and I have a quick and easy reference to see what is inside of this card. As well, This works for selling your handmade cards. This is a wonderful way to keep your handmade cards clean inside of a package without people touching it and getting it all mucked up with their fingerprints, because we work so hard on these cards. So this way they can see what sentiment is on the inside of the card. And there wasn't a lot of extra effort that went into this. It was done at the same time I made the card with a little scrap of paper. I found that this has increased my handmade card sales drastically. I know myself, when I go shopping for cards, I always like to read the greetings, because the greeting really makes the card, for me anyways. I think this is an important aspect that gets overlooked sometimes on handmade cards. Alright, so there you have it. Here are some wonderful ways to use up those tags in your craft space. These are just some ideas that I have for ways that I use tags in my craft space, and it has nothing to do with gift giving or anything like that. I love to make tags, and I love to come up with new ideas to use them. If you have any ideas you'd like to share, leave a comment down below and let me know what you like to do with your handmade tags. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate the support as always. Coming up on screen are a couple of videos I think you may enjoy. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!